should. And I've just been told that my mic has been on mute the whole time. Thanks for that, Shida. But what I should say again is welcome to the Babbling Babel, which is the new voice for authors. All the kids are talking about it in Camden and Shoreditch and other cool places like that across the world. I'm so chuffed. How's your Tuesday been? Anyway, it is Tuesday, isn't it? Mine's been manic. I do a day job as well. I won't bore you with what that day job is, but it's been so manic. It's been ridiculous. But we're here and we've got somebody so cool with the coolest name ever coming up. We really do. Last week's episode with Atlas J. Lively was amazing. And how cool was Atlas? We've got somebody equally cool tonight, Shida Katz, coming on to tell us all about her novel, Wisteraverse, and to tell us all about really what makes her tick as an author. What I should say as well is if you are watching this on YouTube, or indeed if you are watching it on X, get some comments in. Look down here with the magic of science. Q&A, send your questions in the chat. Send some questions. Shida would welcome your questions. I'm absolutely sure of it. So do send some questions in the chat, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Follow myself. Definitely follow Shida. She's always posting interesting and thought-provoking stuff. So definitely follow Shida. And enough of me. I think we should get Shida in the room to come and talk to us, really, because you're going to get bored of my voice pretty soon. So welcome, Shida. Welcome. And thanks for the heads up about the microphone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on the soon to be the most popular podcast ever.
Yes, you can come again, Shida. 100%. Soon to be the most popular podcast. How's your day been anyway, bud? What have you been up to today?
It's been nice. We actually had a great sunny weather. So that was good. And I could sit outside, have a bit of writing done. So, that's very nice. I like to write outside, like on a balcony with a background of trees, and that kind of motivates me.
So that just sounds picturesque, doesn't it? It's been here in the UK. It's been quite a wet day. Actually, it's been raining, so no sitting outside with a beer and writing for me today at all. But no, thank you so much for coming on. I've been following you for quite a while, actually, Shida, and I've always been interested in the kind of stuff that you're posting. Always good questions, always engaging as well with the writing community, which I love. And one of the reasons really that I thought about starting this podcast is to support the writing community. And what I love to see most of the time is authors supporting authors, especially upcoming authors who've written a manuscript. They might be querying, or they might be self-published, or whatever it might be. I love to see that, and you're constantly doing that. You're always doing that, and engaging in the community, which is fab, because it does have its moments of controversy over the last couple of years. But all I see from yourself is just really positive engagement, which is fab. So a few questions, a few topics that we can run through. I think first of all, though, just give us the potted overview, really. Tell us, if you can package up Wisteraverse in a paragraph, what's it about?
Okay, that's impossible, I think. So I actually use Wisteraverse instead of my own name as my screen name, because Wisteraverse is actually sort of my fantasy universe, fantasy, sci-fi, or science fantasy, something in between. And the name comes from a goddess, Wistera, that I invented, and she reigns over 1024 solar systems, basically. It's a part of the universe, but it's her universe. And different stories take place on different planets and solar systems. And the one that I have finished and I'm querying at the moment, so the main work that I'm putting out there, pitching, happens on a very strange-looking planet. The planet is supposed to be the design of it supposed to be the antithesis to good planetary design, because this goddess created it when she was in her rebellious youth, like only a few millennia old. And so this takes place there, and everything is different. Like they don't have birds. Majority of the people only can see blue and green shades. They don't have like it's planet has a tidal rock with a sun, so the part of the planet where everything happens is a dark side. So they don't have a sun, they have moon, and that is kind of like a I guess the weird thing that I wanted everything to be different. So everything is strange, but at the same time, all of the characters based on real people. So as for the plot, basically the pitch in like maybe one sentence or something is that we have this chosen one who is an empress with golden blood, and she's an orphan, everything stereotypical empress, and she is assassinated in the prologue. And so the story is about her ex-girlfriend, Sai, who by association with her basically came in the position of something that makes her target for gods. So the gods want her to, they want her to unlock, like her body would unlock and be a vessel for powers of a god that has been killed. And basically they're trying to force her to do that. And she, basically by doing so, she would become immortal, but also would be forever slave to these gods. And that's kind of like the life that she doesn't want to have. She doesn't want to live for an eternity being slave to these gods. But on the other hand, like the gods are threatening everything. So this is basically the fight that she has with this gods.
I'm curious about one thing, and I think you mentioned it a moment ago. 1,024 planets, I think you said. Is there a reason for that
solar
number?
Systems.
Solar systems. Sorry, 1,024 solar systems. Is there a reason for that number? Because that
Definitely.
because that's obviously that's where you measure bits and bytes in, right? Multiples of 8.
Yes.
So am I getting onto spoiler stuff? Should we not ask this question?
No. It's just that there are a lot of like these concepts. Like there are also like 8 is a big number, and so the binary, of course, comes into play. But it's because so I have a PhD in informatics, and like, you know, that's part of me. I'm a nerd through and through. And so this 1024, this is comes from there, and so the point of this Vistera is actually so she considers herself a gardener, where every other god is like a farmer. So she thinks that she doesn't have to have millions or billions of worshippers. So instead, she has 1,024 basically people. So they are not all humanoid, and they live with her with her, let's say, physical form. They live on some sort of like a space platform. But it's very mystical. There's a castle and gardens, and it's really beautiful. And so these are basically the height of intelligence, but what they lack is this individuality and humanity. So every cycle, she recreates them. Anyone that survives a cycle basically is because they achieved some level of individuality. And to do so, these characters, these different people, they basically are connected to these different solar systems, and they study them. So, for example, I have a character who is this old-looking guy, and he's basically learning from humans on different solar systems, and he learns their ways, their gains, and he tries to achieve this individuality to be able to basically to merit living on. So it's yeah.
Well, do you know what? It blows my mind, really. And I've got, you know, honestly, I could talk to you all night about this stuff, Shida. But see, I'm always fascinated when people write stories, even short stories, whatever, where they're creating worlds, right? Because everything I've ever written is very firmly set on Earth, you know, or with real locations, if you like, that I'm using for fictional purposes. But I have no idea how you go about creating such intricacy and keeping it all straight in your head. So do you have some sort of like world Bible or something that you put stuff down into? How does that work?
Yeah, so I should be more organized, but it's just a Google Doc document, okay? But most of it is here. It's like, you know, people always say like, okay, these are fictional, but they're not. They all live here. So there is the whole universe, every character, they live in my head. And I like that you can say it in authors community, because if you say it into like average normal people, they think you're crazy. But it is a thing. Like you have to. I feel like to be a good author, this, you know, your characters should be alive in your head. And you know, a lot of times I had this thing that I wanted a character to do something, but they wouldn't, and I cannot force them. So they have a will of their own, and they change the story. There were parts of the story that they changed because they, you know, they didn't just want to do what the plot wanted them to do, and I let them. So for me, I started with fantasy when I was a teenager. I was the proper nerd with thick glasses and neurodivergent, and like getting to school too early. It was cold outside, snowing, so I would be able to like warm myself in the library reading fantasy books. And it was a different universe. I didn't feel like, I always felt like I'm not from Earth. I didn't identify with most people. So I lived in this world. But the issue that was like, you know, most of these were classical fantasy, and the typical, this orphan boy. And I didn't identify with that, right? So I had the family, but it wasn't a good one. And I wanted to tell story that, like, I wanted to be represented. And at some point I decided, you know, if I cannot wait for someone to do this, for someone to write a story, to write my story, to represent me. So I did that myself. So the story that I finished, the one with Sai, so Sai is like 99.9 whatever percentage based on me. And I tell people that everything bad that happened to her, or every trouble or everything, these are based on reality, and everything whimsical and happy, and these are fantasy. So you know, I feel like fantasy is not just about having dragons. I mean, I have dragons too, of course. Who wouldn't want dragons? But obviously, it's not about yes, but it's not about that. It's about it's about, you know, when so something happens to this character in the book. I don't want to spoil it, and that happened like exactly to me. But in the case of this character, then the person responsible really get a payback, karma payback. So a a lot of parts of the story is like that. I wrote the first book as a standalone. It is a series. I cannot help writing it. You have to write trilogies and then maybe more. So it's going to be a trilogy, but the first book is standalone, and every single character by the end of the book has their closure. So there are a lot of characters who done bad by other people, and they get their karma payback. And it's also a focus on there is no like, okay, there are like characters that's supposedly the big evil or the big good, but then you realize there's no like black and white, but they are like this petty boss or some like ex who was selfish, or the evil happens by normal people, by decisions that most people do. Someone is maybe a corporate that cares too much about money, things like that. But this big bad evil, it turns out in the book that they're not like that. Everyone is just trying to do what they think is right, and they don't always make it.
I quite like that. I've got to be honest. I really like that, actually, because I think, well, I think even today's sort of populist world that we live in, nuance has kind of been lost. Things are either black and white. You're either good or you're bad, or you're right or you're wrong. It's this or it's that. So I quite like that concept, actually, where evil isn't really a thing other than people's bad choices. And I quite like that. That's a really cool thing. Do you know what? I did have a question, but you've answered it already, which was how much of you is in this book? And I think you said, what was it, 99.5%? I think you said something like that.
Yeah, it was like it's basically very close to 100%. It's funny that so it was as I said, I wanted this to be based on me because I also had a lot of things to like. I had a lot of experiences that I thought other people should have, because especially when we write about so this book is adult, but adult crossover, so also YA, audience can read it. And when you read a lot of these YA books, there is this impression that, certain topics you don't talk about, they're taboo. But what about so many people, so many kids who grow up and that's their life, right? So you cannot say to this, 14-year-old, 15-year-old that your life is taboo. So you're not gonna find your representation. So for me, it was very important to have all of that. There are a few things that were like diverging. And one of the weird things that I think happened was early on when I was writing one of the chapters. It's now, I think, chapter 2 or whatever. And the character passes in front of some, it's a farm and animal enclosures, and she feels sorry for them. And she mentions that because this character also has been in an asylum, in sort of like a Victorian-esque asylum. So it's not on Earth, it's not Victorian era, but it's very similar from the society and technology. And so she identifies with what these animals go through, and because of that, she doesn't consume animal products, right? And so I just wrote this, and a friend was like, "Oh, it's so cool!" Explains why she's vegan. I was like, "Oh, she's vegan," and after that, I read that myself afterwards, and I became vegan after that. So
actually, there's a little bit of the character now in you. It's gone full circle. I love that. That's
exactly.
so cool.
So yeah, it's weird because she influenced me. I was supposed to be the origin of this character, and she changed me. She made me like her too.
That's really interesting, isn't it? You know, there's probably an unwritten PhD about that, isn't there? Actually, about the you know, how much of it, when authors write, do they put themselves in the story, but then how much of the good things that you write about your characters and the plot do you then adopt because you recognize them as actually, no, these are things that I want to be. You know, these are things that I want to be, which is probably why you're writing them in that way, I think. How long is the book? The first book, because you said it's one of three, right? So there's a trilogy.
Yes. So the first one is really a standalone. So that one is at the moment is about 110,000 words. I think it makes it like 400 something pages. I don't know. I don't think in pages, to be honest. I think in word count, what people ask. So I Googled it today. But so for a fantasy book, it's not too long. So the epic fantasy, I mean, the bestsellers, they go with like 400,000 and more. And you obviously have to read the rest. So for me, it's possible. Like, what I like is that that you don't, like, the book doesn't force you to read the second one. Everything is resolved, but it gives you an idea of what's going to happen next. And you only pick up the next book because you like it so much that you just cannot get enough. So I want this to be the reason that my readers would pick up the second book, because they want to stay in that universe and they want to hang out with these characters. And the second book is actually a fantasy heist. And some of the side characters, they get their own story in the second. That's what I'm writing now, the work in progress. And the third one, the main character from the first book unites with this heist crew. So everything comes back full circle in the third one.
I quite like that as well, actually, because quite often, you know, with trilogies, you've actually got one story, haven't you, split over sort of three books. But actually, we've got standalone stories in the same universe, and it genuinely is a universe in your account. But actually, they're related anyway by concept and by character and location and all this sort of stuff. It's the same universe, but actually, could I just then go to the second book and just read the second book if I want? You know, if that's the first one I came across, no big deal. You can read it in any order. That's very cool. Like that. Shida, I've got a couple of questions about you. Let's move on just slightly from your book. I've got a couple of questions about you, and something that I'm really fascinated about. Well, two things actually that I'm fascinated about. One of them is geographies of writing, so where we write a lot of the time. Personally, I mean, I don't know if you can tell by my dining table over there, I'm in a dining room right now, and this is where I work. It's where I work during the day. It's where I work at night when I'm writing. I probably spend about 18 hours a day sat at this desk. It's why my posture is all wrong, to be honest with you. Where do you write? Are you the sort of person where you've got one place to write, or are you a cafe writer? Can you go anywhere? What do you do?
So when you talk about posture, it's so I'm a nerd. So what they say, I have the nerd shoulders. So the place that I cannot say like it's my favorite, but it's where I write probably the most. I think the majority of the words that I've written was it's on my couch. So there is my favorite spot on the couch, and that's where I write.
So a Shida shaped
yes.
Then in the couch. Yeah, that's your spot.
Exactly.
Right,
exactly. Right. Yeah, a few times there are like cat paw prints that I have to clean, and because now there's construction and there's dust everywhere, so I see cat paw prints and yeah. But to be honest, I do like when the weather is nice to sit on the balcony and write a bit, or maybe a bit in the garden. Right. Finally, I got a garden, so soon I would enjoy that in summer, hopefully. But for at least for the first book, because I'm actually so talking about like identity. So I'm also disabled, chronically ill. So I spend a lot of time in doctor's office waiting room, and that was the reason that I chose Google Docs to write. So I write predominantly. I use Google Docs, and that's how I can also write on my phone. So when I'm in the waiting room and like I see some old person on the corner, just like giving me this look, like, like this user always on their phone, and I'm writing my book.
So you're not on X. You're not on X tweeting. You're writing at that time.
Sometimes also on X, but yeah. So I can write. That's a good thing about it. I think right before we talked about the what I use for writing. So I use Google Docs, but I also use Scrivener for formatting. So I manually copy them. I don't know if there's a better way. Probably is, but. To create the PDF and also the I have a Kindle that I want to, sometimes I'm on the go and like I'm I don't know on a trip, and I take my Kindle and I read parts of my book and edit it. So yeah, I use Scrivener basically.
Do you have one of those Kindles with the pen then, so you can write?
No.
Oh, so you
no, I just have a normal. I have to type it basically.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I should get one. I was actually thinking of getting one, but they're expensive.
Me too. They're really expensive, but they look cool for that exact use case that you've just said, that exact workflow where you can export your work as a EPUB file or something, a MOBI file, and put it on a Kindle and then read it as a book, right? And then edit it, do some markup in the Kindle. That's very cool. So Google Docs, that's the next question. You're absolutely right. That's the second thing I'm really fascinated in, is the software, the solutions that people use to write in, whether you're old school pen and paper or a particular software solution. I'm very much into Scrivener. However, recently I came across Plotter, right? And I quite like it, because one of the things I find difficult with Scrivener sometimes is seeing that sort of corkboard, sort of storyboard view. It's quite good for organizing your scenes and you get separate scenes, but I've always found it quite hard to see the woods from the trees in Scrivener, to actually step back and see the whole plot. And Plotter, I love it, absolutely love it. I spend more time now mucking around in Plotter, moving stuff around, than actually writing. So I'm not too sure it's a good idea, but I do anyway. But you're all about Google Docs, which I think is a good idea because it always backs up your stuff. Another question I have for you, Shida, because I have myself personally, which is not very clever because I've got 2 children, as you know, and a wife and my house and a dog and a cat, and there's always chaos about. But I have a peculiar writing habit. I don't know if it's that peculiar, but it's something that it's almost non-negotiable for me, and I need to change this about myself. But I have to have silence when I'm writing. So no radio, no music, God no music, whatever. And if somebody comes and talks to me, I'm out. Like, my concentration is broken, and it'll probably take me a while to get back in. Do you have anything that you would consider yourself to be a peculiar writing habit?
So just about what you mentioned, that okay, most of the time it's not as quiet as I want it to be. So I prefer to write, without anything. But if there is some noise outside, someone talking or whatever noise that there is, then I listen to some music, usually classical music, or movie soundtrack, things like that, instrumental. But it's very strange thing for me, because when I program for whatever situation, like whatever coding that I'm doing, I listen to all sorts of music with lyrics. But of course, when I write, then I cannot do that. So that is one thing that I'm missing, that I don't listen to as much music as I like. This classical music kind of like background, it blends and I don't even hear it anymore. But as far as peculiar habits, I must say, because you sent me this question, and I was thinking like, what would be my peculiar habit? But on the other hand, I feel like maybe I'm like that's being peculiar is my personality a bit. So it's not about habits, but more like there's some things like I mentioned, like with these planets. So the fact that they don't have birds, they don't see the color red, and they don't have a sun, like the sun is the other side of the planet. It makes a lot of challenges when I actually write. So I write it, and then you cannot say, because they always talk about like show not tell. So I cannot just say sun is coming up or sunset. These words don't exist. There is no sunrise or sunset. You cannot get like nobody can get red when they're blushing. They don't see the color red, and their blood is blue. So I say blushing, but they don't look red. And like I cannot use things like feather or bird, like light as a bird. They don't have birds. So I think this being peculiar means also that I'm kind of writing myself into harder situations. So when I was querying, I was thinking agents are not gonna know how hard it is to write this. And it's kind of my fault because I'm making it so strange, this universe, this particularly this planet, that that is hard to write certain sentences. And like I had better readers that like, oh, write this. And I was like, that actually doesn't exist in this word. And for the first book, I made it a point that I do not use the word magic anywhere in the book. There is magic, but the word magic, magician, anything with magic in it doesn't exist. And then there was was like an epilogue. Then I wanted a character to say, oh, what is the magic word, please, right? And I was like, oh, I cannot actually use magic in this book.
What? No spoilers, but what's the word? How did you get around that, the substitute one? It's interesting as well when you say the birds didn't even dawn on the whole world of metaphors that are now unavailable to you.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
So instead of magic, there are other things like it's power, but also particularly because there's a divine side. But like not like a religious thing, but it's like they're gods, and the gods are not, they're fallible, so they have their own agenda, each one of them. And so for that I use power, but I don't see magic in the same way that a lot of other books. They're like for some books I feel like they're like RPG games that you level up. For what I'm writing, it is just maybe a personal taste thing, but I'm not interested in how a character discovers different ability and improves their abilities. For me, it's like I have a scene, for example, for one of the characters where she suddenly gets this basically she almost dies, and then there's this artifact that revives her, and she becomes an assassin, and she just this artifact gets over her, and she does things. Then like she stops time, and she just looks at it. She has no idea what's happening. So these are interesting for me, but in between trying to improve your magic and your skill, this is not something that I'm focusing on. There are enough books about it. So they basically just at the point where they know what they're doing, but it's also not, they don't think of it being magic. It's just something that like one of the characters can open any safe. and she just presses her hands on this vault, and she just syncs her heartbeat with the gears in the machine. It's kind of like steampunk a bit, and then starts little by little changing hers and coaxing the other one. So it's kind of like an instinct thing.
A very cool
She doesn't
power.
think about magic.
That's very cool.
Yes.
Yes, really cool power.
She doesn't think about using magic. She just thinks about like communicating with this machine, and
I guess the thing is, it's not supernatural for them, right? So magic has an essence of supernatural about it, right? It's not natural. That's the point. But I guess for these guys, because they're gods, I think you said, you know,
these are characters. These are not the gods. So these two characters that I mentioned, no. But they are okay. So there are different races in this sources on this planet, and there is a race that they have some magical powers and they manifest in different ways, but they are not. It's kind of like magic is not a accepted thing. Not everybody is aware of it. They're hiding it, but also there are no schools of magic. There is no one to tell them because each person is unique, and so the person doesn't think about it as magic. The person thinks that they have a way with things. So it's like a knack. It's something like you're good at.
Yeah. I think that about people who are musical, if I'm honest, because I am not musical at all. I can't play any instrument, really. So I always think that about those sorts of people. To me, it's supernatural magic, seeing people who are musically talented in that way. A couple more questions. I'm coming to the time, but a couple of more questions. And I think you mentioned it earlier on. You have a PhD, don't you? In what's the field? What's it in?
So it is informatic, but so actually it's computer vision. So that was my thesis on. Interestingly, it was about color and materials and all this. So I worked a lot on human perception, human color perception, and that's one of the. I think that's actually the reason that different races on this planet have different color perception. So there are some races that can see golden and yellow. Some races can see red colors, and I wanted to play with that.
So, what's the dream then, Shida, for yourself? So, I asked you this question earlier on, didn't I, before the stream? You're not full-time writing yet. Is that the end game? Is the end game to get to?
I would love to.
Yeah, that's where you want to get to.
I would love to, but it's a very difficult. It's a very difficult industry. It's a very difficult game, and there are people like mid-level writers that also can live full-time from it. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that I cannot rely on writing for the market. So if I'm lucky and at some point market aligns with me, that would be great. But I wouldn't be able to write things that I don't like, that I wouldn't read, just to make money. So
that's cool. That's really cool. Yes. That's steadfast, because actually your creation and your craft is more important to you than writing for a particular vogue market trend, whatever it might be. That's really cool.
It's I don't know if it comes from like a noble place or the fact that I just cannot do it. So it's maybe if I could, I would, but I just cannot write something like it. I tried and I wrote something and I was like, this is horrible. Like I cannot. It's just I couldn't put it out there. And I know that. I mean, others read this, and nothing against that. It's just that I cannot do something that isn't me. It's just there's no point in that.
Yeah, I get it. You've got to put your soul into it, haven't you, to love it in that way, to do your best stuff. Love that. So book one is written, And what stage in the process are you at? So are we querying agents now?
I'm still querying. I'm in the trenches. I've been in the trenches too long. I don't even want to think about it, but I started querying January 2023. And the
I'm
book
not sure
changed
that's
a
too long, is
lot.
it? It feels long,
Well,
but you hear
yes,
stories,
it
don't
feels
you?
forever.
Of course. Yeah, I'm sure it
So
does.
the book took less than a year to write, and I've been like, I think it's almost year and a half that I'm querying. It's crazy, and I'm so I would like to get an agent and traditionally publish it.
Yes.
But if I cannot do that, if that doesn't happen, then I might self-publish.
Yeah.
So right now I still have a list. There are still many more agents that I can query. The problem is that right now, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of agents, but there are also a lot of aspiring writers. And for me, I'm trying different things. I think the hardest thing was for me is the selling part. I'm an introvert. I'm a nerd. If I was good at selling, I would be in marketing or something. So yes, I can write 120,000 words or 110,000 words, but this query blur, that is really the end of me. And
The hardest bit.
I've written. Right now the version I'm querying is the 146 version. I only send it to less than 70 agents, but I had a lot of versions that got better read and stuff. And every time I'm going with a different angle, and I send two different versions to a same person, and she said these are not the same book. So intentionally, I wanted something complex. So the book is very complex. I know when people say like, "Oh yeah, you think because you cannot see the forest for the trees," but it's just I don't think anyone can write a short version of it where it does it justice, because there are so many angles. And what I'm doing also is that every other chapter is a flashback. So I didn't want to start the story with like a long backstory like a lot of epic fantasy does, start like that, right? um, I started I started from the inciting incident, so where the empress gets assassinated. And so every other chapter is flashback, and the flashbacks, because the main character at some point gains the ability to see all colors, but in the flashback chapters she can only see the shades of blue and green. So the flashback chapters are quite gloomy, very cold and things, and this change between each chapter is very vivid. So the current chapters, the present chapters are vivid colors and things are happy, and the flashback chapters are telling you basically why this person did this. And the flashback chapters are where most of the twists are. Kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Memento, where like the twist happens in the
Christopher
back.
Nolan movie, isn't it? It's a Christopher
Yes.
Nolan movie, I think.
So
really good. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So you start with this character, and then by the end of the book, there is a flashback where you understand something, and there's a huge twist. But this twist happened before. And for me, it is the situation that when you talk to a person, you have their version now. Like I talk to you the way you are now, but there were lots of things in the past that made you who you are. So I like to delve into that. I like to analyze how people become what they are and why they do what they do. So the twists for me are finding out where that change happened, where that branch in your in your life, in this timeline, happened for you, that created this version of you and not many other millions of other versions that could have been.
I should say again, because I'm on mute, I nearly got a message from you again then, didn't I, saying you're on mute again. I love it. Honestly, it's just, I just love the complexities of it. I really do. I'm in awe of the thing that you've created, and I know you will get published. Whether you get an agent, you will, of course you will, or whether you decide to self-publish, whatever. I can't wait to read it. Genuinely can't, because it just sounds so fascinating, and the very fact that you've got color as an integral theme within it means that there has to be a focus on invoking senses within the writing. And I think that's magic in itself, even though if you don't want to use the word, I think that's magic. I absolutely do. I really do. So I can't wait. And I genuinely hope that people watch this and listen to what you've said about your book and find it just as engaging and interesting as I do. Like I say, I've got no doubt you will get published. Keep believing, you will. The right agent will come along, the right one, and it will be the right one, right? So all this 70 odd with 146 different blurbs, there'll be a distant memory, and it won't be painful anymore. I'm quite confident of it. But I'm conscious of time, and I've kept you long enough, even though I could probably talk to you all night. But thank you so much. Honestly, Shida, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Really has, and I hope you come on again, actually, to keep us updated about your journey. You've got to come back.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and yeah, I would love to come back. I hope that I would love to see a lot of other authors on this podcast, and I would be tuning in every week.
You might be the one subscriber. Bless you. That's so cool.
Yeah. Really so hopefully, we would the next time we talk, that I would have better news that maybe I could show you the cover.
How cool would that be? No, please do. When there's a development, let me know and come back on and talk all about it. That'd be so cool. But guys, how cool is Shida Katz? If you're watching this, I'm sure you agree with me. Shida Katz is just mega cool, and we definitely cannot wait to read your book. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll definitely speak soon. Appreciate it, guys. Shida Katz, ladies and gentlemen, how cool is Shida Katz? Genuinely, just proper cool vibe. I wish I was that cool. I'm not that cool, unfortunately. I'm just not that cool. But thank you so much. If you've stayed this long, God bless you. You're mental, because there's probably football on or something like that. But I do appreciate it if you have. That's so kind of you. If you tuned in a bit later on, missed the beginning, whatever, it's available on YouTube. It's on X, on my profile as well. Please watch it back. Please do. And we will definitely get Shida back on, because she's just amazing. We could talk to her all night. We really could. So next episode in a couple of weeks' time, 2 weeks tonight, come back. We'll have another author for you as well. And all I say is just thanks. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we will catch you soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.